So I'll be talking to you about the power of emotions today. But preparing for this speech was a little challenging. I had to come up with a new idea, something that was, at least to me, never spoken before about. So I thought the power of emotions and the emotional power, the concept of emotional power. I talk a lot about social intelligence and emotional intelligence, but there's a lot of research done about it. There's a lot of write-up about it, but I wanted something a little original. So I came up with a formula that we'll be sharing today. But first, I want to talk about today's lifestyle, today's modern life. Today, social media, technology has improved our lives. It made us connect with a wider variety of audience. It made us connect with our loved ones, families, friends, across borders, with no limitations. I have a sister studying in Ireland currently. I'm proud of. She's a scholarship student. But through these tools, we're able to communicate with her on a daily basis. It feels as though she's just next door. She's not that far off anymore. So that's a good thing. It's a blessing. These tools are a blessing to us. But if you think about it, and I'm just asking you a question, since we came here this morning, how many of you people have used social media? Raise of hands, please. Okay, that's a house full. Okay. And a lot of us are using them on a daily basis, not even on a daily basis, not an hourly basis. We're checking our mobile phones every 5 minutes, every second, whenever we get a chance. And these tools are becoming our main way of communicating with the world, communicating with others, communicating with our friends, with our families, with our loved ones. However, these tools, as they may be a blessing, they might have a downside to them. It is making us more dependent on electronic communication. We are communicating more and more through them to the point that while I'm sitting talking to you right now, right here, a lot of you might have just looked at their mobile phones. Caught you. And what that does to us is it's taking that human interaction from our interactions, from our communication. If you think about children today, a lot of children have mobile phones or mobile devices. They're communicating more and more with their peers, with their friends, with their family even, through these digital devices. However, what that leads to is a lot of them are preferring to deal with their peers and to deal with others through these tools. But they find it hard to deal with people in a human way. It makes them start losing that human touch, that emotional touch, that human feel. They find it challenging to work with others, to communicate with others in person. Many of them would prefer to spend hours playing video games, multiplayers, through Wi-Fi and internet. And they have fun, but if you ask them to go out and play together, they just find it difficult. And some of them go like, oh, no, I prefer to play alone. And these tools are changing our life. They are making our interaction a little bit more complex. Emotional intelligence and social intelligence is an aspect that is forgotten in a lot of people's lives, in a lot of people's interaction. Let me give you an example. Think of me of this person. This person, Mr. Straight Face, this is the type of person that you would deal with it might be a teacher, a colleague, a boss. This person is not much of a sharer or a carer. This person is formal person with a formal face, focused on objectives, more like a computer, more like a robot. Someone who works just with facts, numbers, objectives. I'm dealing with you on this interaction, and there's not much sharing. There's not much of that human interaction. And if you take that example to the extreme, you're thinking of dealing with a robot kind of personality. It gets to a point where it gets a little creepy, thinking of dealing with such a person on a daily life. Those type of people are hard to work with. But think why. If you think about it, there's something missing in that interaction. And I've dealt with a wide variety of people, and we find that these people tend to be difficult to handle, difficult to work with. And sometimes these people might be great mentally, they might be very intelligent people. However, they might not be able to achieve a lot of their goals because they're not able to connect with people. Now think of me with my smiley face. This is the type of person who shares more. This is the type of person you'd share a laugh with. Imagine a boss, a family member, a loved one, someone important to you. What do you share with these people? A lot of the time, if they're important to you, if there are people who had an influence upon you, influenced your life positively, you'll find that that interaction that you shared had some emotional interaction. There was shared laughs, shared cries maybe. There were smiles. And there is emotional intensity in that interaction. We find that people who don't have that much of that emotional interaction find it difficult to deal with others. And you find yourself feeling more comfortable dealing with people who share more, who share their emotions. Think of those people. I'm sure that you have someone in your mind right now. And you can imagine, and you can think of the number of emotions that you've shared with them. Right? To me, for a long period of time, since I was studying, and you'd be surprised, I did a Bachelor's of Aviation Aircraft Maintenance, which had nothing to do with this. But I had an interest in psychology, human development. And I've always wondered, and I asked this question, what made successful people successful? Myself, as a student, a young student, I was that A+ student. I was thinking always grades, numbers, IQ. That was well and good until you went to university level, until I had to travel. I found out that it's not all about IQ. It's not all about numbers. And this was the thing that I've also discovered through research, that a lot of work of researchers like Daniel Goleman see that IQ is just the tip of the iceberg in a successful person's story. It is just what people may see or may quantify by looking at a successful person. However, there's a lot of underlying personal skills, emotional intelligence, EQ, that is underlying those success stories. To me, this was a turning point. A lot of great authors like Malcolm Gladwell in his book Outliers talks about how social intelligence, which is emotional intelligence also, is so important in the success of a lot of great examples. And we'll see how. coming to the idea of leadership, leaders are in general successful people. You cannot lead unless you're a successful person. You're able to influence. Leaders are influencers. Leaders are people who, and by one of the definitions, leaders are people who get a lot of things done through others. And it's funny, because that's what some lazy people might be defined. There is a great theory about how lazy smart people can be great leaders, but that's a different topic. However, if you think about leaders, they're influencers, they're motivators, they're people who instigate change, they make people do stuff, and they achieve goals, objectives through others. A formula on leadership, when I first studied leadership, was that leadership is the function of leader plus follower times the situation. You find that, and I want to focus more on that bracket of leader plus follower, because that's where the human interaction is happening. Leaders, you measure your leadership by how good the interaction is with your followers. If you're a leader that is interacting, motivating, you're charging people, charging their emotions, then chances are you'll be a better leader. However, if that interaction is not happening, if you're not able to influence their emotions, then you have a problem in your leadership. Think of great examples of leadership. These are just examples. You'll always find that in any great success story or a story of leadership, that these people had influenced other people's emotions at some level. They touched people's lives, their hearts, and opened that key to unlock their hearts, the key of emotion. Because that's what humans are. Humans are not machines. A lot of engineers think that, okay, by working the same way that I would work with machines, that I would have certain inputs and then I have an exact result in the end. Or working with a formula, a mathematical formula, that it's easy to quantify the output. But with humans, that's not the case. There is a lot of human factor. There is a lot of emotions. There is a lot of feelings that you have to cater for. And these feelings can be the make or break. These feelings and emotions are what would make these people either go the extra mile or just give you the minimum output just to get by. So what is emotional power? To me, emotional power is quantified as this. Emotional power, EP, basically how much emotional intensity, the intensity of the emotions that you can create and you can instigate with a certain person, times the number of people that you've instigated, that you've moved these emotions within. So if you think about that, if you're a great leader and you wanted to influence a lot of people, you'll need to influence a lot of people's emotions. You need to establish a deeper connection with these people. You need to be able to get the person at the end of the room moved by an emotion, by an idea, so that they can buy into your ideas. So if you think about this formula, then you find that emotional power has a direct relationship between emotions and the number of people influenced. So if you're an entrepreneur, you're a leader, if you're a manager, a parent, or a family member, you'd always want to think this way. In order for me to have greater power with people, greater influence with people, I will have to influence their emotions at a deeper way. And then I'll have to multiply that with as many people as possible, or as many people I want to influence as possible. This is what would make a great leader and a great boss, a great influencer. It is the power of emotions that you have. Now, thinking of entrepreneurship, entrepreneurs today are not just business owners. You're not only selling a product and a commodity. People are interested in what you're offering and what and who you are and what you represent. What are your values? And in order for you to communicate that, you'll have to touch people's lives through example, through kindness, through reaching out to their emotions, knowing their needs, and catering for them. Thank you, and I hope that I've delivered something that you can take away. I hope that you think about the power of emotions and emotional power in your daily interaction, whether in business, with your family, with your friends. And I hope that you take this in a good way. And remember that with great power comes great responsibility, and with a lot of emotional power comes a lot of influence. Thank you.